Hello guys, I hope everybody is able to see me, hear me and see the screen properly. Can I get a quick confirmation on chat please? सबको मेरी आवाज आ रही है? A quick confirmation on chat. I hope everybody is able to see me, hear me and see the screen properly. Okay. So first of all, thank you very much for joining in. And this is basically a session which we are conducting for the upcoming batch, which is the May 2024 FRM Level 1 batch, where the discussion is going to be on the orientation. Basically, I'll be walking you through all the book. I'll give you perspective of what exactly is there in the book. Okay. And there'll be some other points which we're going to be discussing. So yes, we're going to be taking a session for SCR also very soon when the admissions for SCR starts opening up. Now, I hope everybody is able to see the agenda for the session today. So explicitly, we're going to be first, I'll just give you a brief about what exactly is the FRM exam. Then I'll quickly move towards all the books. I'll go to the index of all the books and I'll walk you through what is there in the chapter broadly. Okay, and then how my sessions are going to get conducted, what is the prerequisite for those sessions. Okay, then I'll give you some general guidelines with respect to how should you plan your preparation and especially how should you start solving the question bank. Okay, and if you're joining my session, what should be your approach for the preparation, and finally do's and don'ts, okay, for your FRM preparation. Okay, so that is what we're going to be covering at an overall level. So let us start talking about the exam. I know everybody is aware about it, but I'll just give a brief of what exactly is the exam structure like for the students who are just watching the getting an introduction for the first time. So FRM is bifurcated into two parts. Okay, level 1 and level 2. Okay, when you look at the level 1 exam, you get around 100 questions, okay, to solve in around 4 hours. Okay, similarly, when you look at level 2, you get around 80 questions and you get around 4 hours to solve. Okay, the fees for level 1 is around 1000 USD, 1000 US dollar. Okay, and apart from that, the fees for level 2 is around 600 US dollar. Okay, now when we talk about this 1000, it is basically bifurcated into two parts. You have to pay the entire $1000, but it is 400 is for the registration and 600 is for the exam sitting fee. So this is exam sitting fee, and which is actually coming over here when you are also going for level 2. So you have to pay for level 2 also the exam sitting fees. Okay, now with respect to the exam, okay, there are 4 books, and now I'm only focusing on level 1. So for FRM level 1, there are 4 books in which the entire curriculum has been bifurcated. So when we say entire curriculum, there are 62 chapters. Now, whatever information I'm giving as per 2023. Okay, Institute will make some changes for 2024, and that information will be available on 1st of December when the actual registration for next year will start. Okay, so right now as of 2023, it is 62 chapters. And how the 62 chapters bifurcated, there are 4 books. So first book, which I'm calling it as book number 1, is basically Foundation of Risk Management. Okay, the second book is Quantitative Analysis. Third book is your Financial Market and Product. The fourth book, okay, is your Valuation and Risk Model. Okay, now when you look at the weightage of the exam, the first book covers around 20%, second book covers around 20%, third book covers around 30% and 30%. So at an overall level, majority of your questions in the exam is going to come from book 3 and book 4. Okay, so obviously when you're solving, when you're preparing, your focus has to be on book 3, book 4. but please do not ignore book 1 and book 2. This is the mistake which a lot of students do. They feel that this first book is very easy and they will be able to score very well, and they fail in that. They perform very bad in that book, and because of which their entire score gets stuck, okay, and they fail in the exam. So don't make that mistake. Okay, so there are total going to be 100 questions in the exam from this part. I'll just give you a brief of what has been my experience with respect to the FRM level 1 exam. So when you say there are going to be 100 questions, again, whatever I'm saying is from the historical experiences of the exam. For the past 3-4 years, I've been explicitly talking to students after the exam. Okay, so out of this 100 question, the trend has been changing. Previously, if you would have seen FRM level 1 exam around 2016, 15 or 17, it was heavy calculation driven. But right now the institute has, what I feel is the institute has moved towards more understanding based concepts. Okay, so they are testing you more on theory, which generally comes to around 70%. Okay, these are not guidelines given by the institute. This is my experience. Okay, and then you have some calculation based questions, which is coming around 30%. Okay, so over here I want to address one of the doubts which a lot of students have in their mind, that okay, there is book 2 which is quantitative analysis, which is statistics. So the exam is quant driven. That is wrong. Exam is not quant driven. Okay, what I want to highlight over here is that it is more theoretical. Okay, and this 30% that you're looking at, okay, out of that 30% also, if I'm saying out of 130 question, so around 15 question will be very easy, straight away formula driven. The rest 15 question might be slightly challenging. This is what has been the observation. Again, the institute's focus is not on the calculation piece. Their more focus is on testing you on the theoretical piece. Okay, so that is the broader bifurcation that we have seen, and few 1 or 2 points with respect to the exam. So when you go and solving the exam part, we have the question bank and all everything. What is the general trend that I have seen is that when you solve the actual GARP exam, you have to make sure that your time management is proper. Time management is proper. And how do we resolve this time management? Always solve quiz in digital format, where you have an option to flag. Okay, because when you have a question bank in the printed format, then I'm not saying it is bad. What I'm trying to say is, if you want to be better prepared for the exam, ideally it should be in a digital format. Okay, that is the idea. Second, you should be able to eliminate the option. When I'm saying elimination of option, why? Because when you look at any particular question in the GARP actual exam, okay, what they will do, they will give 2 options very, very close. 2 options are going to be very close. That means there will be only one word ka difference. So you have to make sure that, okay, when you're reading the question, you have to be first very clear, okay, out of A, B, C, D, A and C is not the answer. So you're very clear in the mind. Now, whatever option you're going to choose, it has to be B and D. Okay, and you write it down in the sheet of paper that you get. Okay, and that means what I'm trying to highlight is, whenever you're solving any question bank, the chapter wise question, anything, option elimination should be in your mind, that I have to look at the question and try to eliminate the option. Okay, the third point which I have seen majority students facing the challenge is that question selection in the actual exam. Now, question selection, why am I explicitly saying this? See, there are 100 questions and you have 4 hours. Now, a lot of people might think that 4 hours is more than enough. You're wrong. It is not enough, because the questions are structured in such a way that they will give you a lot of unnecessary information into it. So you will end up wasting time reading. The options will be slightly bigger, or the question will be having a lot of unnecessary information, all of that. So you'll end up wasting a lot of time. Okay, so when you're solving the question, okay, it can be the actual exam question or the mock papers that we are going to be providing, or any of these, your thought process has to be, do I have to pick up this question right now? Okay, and this understanding will only come when you have solved 2000 to 3000 questions. because then you will get a gut feeling that, okay, this question seems to be slightly tough. I'll not pick it up right now. I'll pick it up at the end. I'll flag and I'll move ahead. Okay, so that selection also will be a game changer for you on the day of the exam. So these 3 pointers, very important when we talk about the exam preparation. Okay, this sorry, actual exam date. This is from the perspective of actual exam date. Okay, I'll also be talking about how you should prepare. What should be your thought process when you're preparing for the exam. Okay, now, but before we go to that, I'll walk you through each book and I'll talk about the chapters in that book. So first, moving towards the book number 1, what is that? Foundation of Risk Management. Okay, in that the overall book is theoretical. There are 1 or 2 chapters which has some calculation driven into it. Okay, the first chapter, which is building blocks of risk management, theoretical. Okay, but you do expect questions in this, and the questions are going to be more or less scenario based. Scenario in the sense, they'll ask you a question like you're a CR of the company and you're facing, you have a presentation given by your analyst, and these are the lot of risks that they are highlighting. Which of the risk makes is a part of the liquidity risk, for example. So whatever you're going to read in this chapter, okay, it's more or less been asked in theoretical sense with respect to some scenario, and the same is applicable for the first 4 chapters of this book. Okay, so this is theory. For theory, I'm going to write T. Okay, and generally we expect around 1 question easily from this concept for the chapter. Okay, next is how do firm manage risk. Now the first chapter was just the basics of what is risk, how do companies manage risk, what is the thought process behind the risk, what are the challenges that they face. The second part is more from the perspective of the financial risk. Now when we are saying financial risk, why explicitly financial? Because there are 2 bifurcation, financial and non-financial risk. Non-financial risk could be like your reputation damage, okay, where there is no direct financial impact. Okay, so this chapter focuses more on how do you try to hedge your financial risk. Okay, again, over here is theoretical aspect. They're not telling you how to hedge it, they're telling you the need of hedging, what is the thought process behind the hedging, what is the risk that you're facing. So that concepts are being covered. Okay, this is also theoretical. Okay, and you can expect 1 question easily from this chapter. Next is governance of risk management. Now, why governance is so much important? Because in 2007 and 8, we have seen a lot of banks, the governance was not proper, and because of which there was a lot of fraud kind of situation happening. The money was not managed properly. The risk management team was not able to perform properly. So over here, this chapter explicitly focuses on SOX Act. Then there was Financial Stability Board related regulations. Okay, it gives you some perspective of what is happening and what was the effect of Volcker rule. So all of these things are being explained. Again, theoretical. I expect 1 to 2 question easily from this chapter. Okay, so first 3 chapters, you can also read it in one go, in the sense they are individual chapters, but when you look at the exam perspective, institute might give you a connected question on the first 3 chapters. Okay, next is credit risk transfer mechanism. Now this chapter, there is one more chapter called anatomy of great financial crisis and mortgage and mortgage backed security. Okay, all of these 3 chapters, they're connected to each other, so you have to do in a particular order for the exam. Okay, when you look at my content also, I am going to first ask you to do mortgage and mortgage backed security, then I'm going to ask you to do anatomy of great financial crisis, and then you'll come to this. Okay, so it's an order that you have to follow. What is given in this question, in this chapter? Theoretical. Okay, now from the exam perspective, what they're trying to highlight is that when the credit crisis happened in 2007, okay, lot of credit risk transfer methodologies like CDS was used. Okay, then special purpose vehicle was also used. So these credit derivatives, okay, what are those credit derivatives, what is the risk, what are the advantages, disadvantages? So those have been discussed and they have connected it back to the crisis. Okay, theoretical, you can expect 1 question easily from this chapter. Modern portfolio theory. This is the calculation chapter. Calculation in the sense it is theory plus calculation. Okay, but you will find some calculation which was still not there in any of the chapters. Okay, it is CAPM, capital asset pricing model. Okay, they have talked about the calculation, the assumptions of capital asset pricing model, how you can, when you get the answer of the capital asset pricing model, how you're going to take a decision with respect to capital asset pricing model. So that is being explicitly highlighted. Plus they've also talked about performance measure. What is this performance measure? Sharpe ratio, trainer ratio. These are important from the exam perspective. Okay, so on an average you will find 2 questions coming in from this chapter, calculation plus theory. Calculation is there slightly. Okay, let me move towards the next chapter, arbitrage pricing theory. We generally call it as APT. Okay, this is actually a continuation of CAPM, capital asset pricing model. Okay, because capital asset pricing model is single factor model, we are moving to multiple factor. Okay, again it's slightly theoretical. Okay, in this chapter the most important part is the pharma French model, 3-factor model. Okay, so you expect generally 1 question from this, or they might combine CAPM and this chapter and they might ask you 2-3 questions. That can also happen. Okay, theoretical principles of effective data aggregation. This is extremely theoretical. Okay, this was nothing but a research paper or white paper which has been converted into a chapter. Okay, the reason they have added this chapter, because when you work for a bank and you have variety of reportings coming in, the entire reporting is based on the quality of the data. So over here what they are trying to tell you is that as a bank, how you're supposed to make sure that the data is managed properly, the reporting is happening properly, the quality of the data. So they have highlighted principles accordingly. Okay, so 1 question is surely going to be tested from this chapter. Okay, in some cases I've seen that they've not tested heavily on this chapter, so it's very basic chapter. Okay, enterprise risk management, again theoretical chapter. This is why this has been added a few years back into the curriculum, because they want to give you a perspective that as an organization, bigger organizations like say JP Morgan or Citibank, they use enterprise level, overall level risk management, which gives them the perspective of what is happening in the company with respect to all the different types of risk. So they run an ERM program. So in this chapter they're focusing on what is ERM, what is the basic structure, okay, what are the advantages, what are the challenges that you might face when you're implementing. If you do not have an ERM, what will happen? All of these things have been discussed. Okay, I expect around 1 question to 2 questions from this chapter. Okay, the next chapter, which is learning from financial disaster, very important chapter from the exam perspective. Now the challenge with this chapter is that it's kind of case studies being given in this chapter. There are very important case studies like Metal Gazelle Shaft, then long-term capital management, Baring Banks, London Whale. All of these are important case studies, but you cannot go and do this chapter at the start. You have to do it once you're done with VAR. Okay, so ideally when I'm going to teach you also, it is going to be at the end. Once you have the overall perspective of the curriculum, then only we'll take this chapter. Okay, but this chapter is important. Okay, you easily can expect 2 questions from this chapter. If you're lucky, then it can go to 3 questions also, very easily. Okay, depending upon how the weightages have been set for your paper. Next is anatomy of great financial crisis. Basically, they're telling you how did that crisis happen, what are the main drivers of those crises, then what are the learnings that we had, and how Federal Reserve intervened and helped the market to make sure that this crisis does not go haywire. Okay, so theoretical, again easily 2 questions from this chapter. Okay, next is GARP code of conduct. This is theoretical, important. You can easily expect 2 question to 4 question from this chapter. Okay, now the beauty about this chapter is that they have told you as a risk manager what all things you are supposed to do. Okay, that means obviously you're not supposed to do any fraud, you're not supposed to do any misconduct. Okay, misappropriation of funds should not be there. All of these things which are common sense, but they when you read the content in the book, it is more like principles and all, but when you go to the exam, it's going to be scenario based. Okay, so it's slightly subjective. The questions will be slightly subjective for the actual exam, but this is what this chapter is. Small short chapter. To understand this chapter better, you have to solve a lot of questions. Okay, so this is where we complete the first book. Is everybody with me? Online, everybody with me? Can I get a quick confirmation? है कि नहीं? अभी तो शुरुआत हुई है. चलो, we're going to be moving towards book 2 now. Okay. When we talk about book 2, okay, the book 2 seems to be, okay, slightly statistical. Or I mean, the book, entire thing, the name is quantitative analysis. It's statistical driven book, but a lot of students, they can get confused that it is calculation. Again, the perspective of the institute is that they don't want you to test you heavily on the calculation from this chapter. They are testing you more on the understanding based. Okay, so and in the exam also there are 20 questions that are dedicated for this book. I expect that around 12 to 13 easily going to be theory. Okay, so more than 50-60% is going to be theory from this book. Let us move towards this chapter. Again, everything is calculation. Calculation in the sense there are formulas being given. Okay, but every formula is not tested. Okay, fundamentals of probability, very basic chapter. Okay, it is obviously calculation based chapter. Over here you will have to calculate. Okay, but calculation is not heavy. There are basic multiplication and division that you have to do. Okay, from the exam perspective, what I have seen the last few exams, 4 questions have been asked. Okay, out of that 2 questions are very easy, 2 questions are challenging. This has been the general feedback. Okay, so even though the chapter might seem easy, when you go to the actual exam, that those 2 difficult questions, they might challenge your understanding, and it might hit your ego that I have solved so many questions of fundamentals of probability, now I am not able to solve. So you have to manage your ego in the exam day. Whichever is not, you're not getting the answer, mark the option, flag it and move ahead. Let us go to the next part, which is random variable. Again, random variable is focusing on in mathematics you have constant and variable. So you guys must have seen 5x 7y in when you're looking at mathematical equations. So this 5 is constant because the value will not change, but this x is a variable because it can take variety of values. So we have put x to denote it is not going to take a fixed value, it will change. Okay, so that is where this chapter talks about what exactly is random variable, what are different types of random variables. Okay, how does this random variables probability of the outcome is calculated, that has been highlighted in this chapter. Again, calculation based chapter, but the focus is on understanding. Okay, from the exam perspective, I expect 1 question to be tested from this chapter. Common univariate random variable, important chapter from the exam perspective, because they have talked about different random variables and their probability distribution. For example, they have talked about Bernoulli, binomial, Poisson. All of these are important. All of these are important. Okay, the normal distribution is also important from the exam perspective. They test you on the exam, so I expect around 2 to 3 questions easily. Okay, again, the focus of this chapter is to understand what are the different types of probability distributions available, because this chapter is a building block, okay, for your VAR calculations. Okay, so if you do not understand normal distribution, if you do not understand those stuff, okay, it will be very difficult for you to pick up VAR chapter. So this is the building block, so do not skip this chapter. In my opinion, do not skip this chapter. Okay, and it is also important from the exam perspective because they are going to test you on questions. Multivariate random variable. Now this chapter is kind of connected to fundamentals of probability. Okay, if your fundamentals of probability chapter is conceptually clear, then this chapter will be easy, because they are talking about what is probability matrix, how do you calculate conditional probability, then conditional expectation. So those slightly statistical term, but again, this chapter is very easy, because the building block was fundamentals of probability chapter. From the exam, 1 question. Okay, calculation, but calculations are basic calculation, mathematics, basic mathematical operators they have used. Okay, the next chapter is sample movement. From this chapter onwards in your book 2, we actually go into forecasting. Okay, so the focus is more on forecasting. Okay, so over here they're telling you that, okay, there is something called population. Okay, we might not be able to analyze the overall population of the population data. So what we generally do, we'll be taking a sample from the population and we'll do analysis of the sample. Okay, so that is why the chapter name is sample movements. So focusing on sample, the average of the sample, the variance of the sample, and connecting it back to the overall population also. Okay, that is the idea of the chapter. Okay, from the exam perspective, I expect 1 question. It can obviously vary. This is my understanding. This is theory plus calculation. You will find huge amount of theory also. Important concepts are central limit theorem, blue. Okay, they are generally tested in terms of theoretical questions from in the exam perspective. Okay, hypothesis testing. over from here again, we are doing forecasting. We have some understanding about the population of the data, and we are making some that we are checking, statistically checking how this whether this understanding is correct or not. Okay, from the exam perspective, easily 2 question. Okay, it's more theory. Okay, there is some part calculation but understanding. Okay, important chapter from the exam perspective. Okay, the type 1 type 2 error, then there is power of test, p-value, all of them are important. Okay, these are highly testable concepts in the actual exam. Let us go to the next chapter, which is linear regression. Mark this chapter as also star. You can easily expect 2 question. Actually, this chapter and the next chapter with regression with multiple regressor, both are connected. Okay, now when we talk about linear regression, basically what they are doing is, if suppose I am managing a manufacturing of ice cream, I want to understand what is going to be the sale of ice cream, or basically on what factors my sale of ice cream is dependent on. So I'll go and do a regression analysis by taking historical data, which will help me to identify those important factors. So it can be temperature, humidity, rainfall, like that. Okay, so entire regression in this, what are the key assumptions of regression? That is very, very, very important. Okay, then when you do hypothesis testing on the regression, which is over here. Okay, so from the exam perspective, easily 2 question. Okay, it is more theoretical and more understanding. Okay, this chapter is continuation. So in the previous chapter we had one explanatory variable. In this chapter we have multiple explanatory variable, which is also called as multiple regression. Okay, again in this chapter you can easily expect 1 question. Easy chapter. If the previous chapter was conceptually clear to you, this chapter becomes very easy. More or less theoretical. Okay, you might find formulas, but then they will not test you to calculate the formulas. Very basic calculations come. Okay, R square and adjusted R square is very important, which is also tested in the exam. Regression diagnostic, pure theory, very, very low calculation, 1 or 2 concepts, but very important for the exam. Very important for the exam. You can easily expect 2 to 3 questions from this chapter. Okay, over here what they are trying to tell you is that the previous 2 chapters, regression with single regressor and the regression with multiple regression, what was the actual problem in that chapter? When you're doing regression, what are the challenges that you might face? Okay, so they're talking about hypothesis, heteroscedasticity, then multiple regression, multicollinearity, these major challenges. How do you tackle that? Okay, so heteroscedasticity is very important. Then your multicollinearity, very, very important. Bias variance trade-off, very, very important. Okay, I've seen students being tested on this. Okay, so this chapter cannot be skipped. From the next section, okay, from here slightly tricky chapter starts coming in with respect to statistics. Not tricky as such. What they're doing is the way they have given you the content, it makes you feel that it is slightly tricky. Okay, stationary time series. Okay, you have a time series where, say for example, you have on the x-axis time and on the y-axis you have sales. So you're plotting the sales over a period of time. Okay, that is a time series data. So can we use this time series data to do forecasting? Okay, so they've explained you what are the problems in time series. So it can be seasonality, it can be trend, okay, it can be cyclicity. So how do you solve this problem? Okay, and how do you use that for forecasting? Okay, that is stationary, and then there is non-stationary data, non-stationary time series. Both the chapters are connected. Okay, combined, both the chapters combined, they can ask you 2 questions. Now what has been my experience when I talk to students is that these questions are very easy. Even though the chapter might seems very tough, okay, in the exam they are asking you very easy questions. If you have read the chapter once or twice properly, you'll be able to pick up the answer. Okay, next is measuring return, volatility and correlation. There are 3 parts into this chapter. When you look at the chapter also, they are bifurcated into 3 parts. Okay, the correlation part is slightly important from the exam perspective. 1 question easily is testable. Okay, it can go up to 2 also. I've seen that in the previous exam. It's more or less calculation based question, easy calculation, not very tough. Okay, over here the JB test is very important, which is being tested. Then there is different forms of correlations, Pearson's correlations, Spearman rank correlation, Candles-Tau correlation, that is being tested in the exam. Let us go to the next section, simulation and bootstrapping. Again, this is Monte Carlo simulation. The institute does not expect you to run an actual simulation. They want you to understand the simulation from theoretical perspective. Entire chapter is theory. There is no calculation as such. Okay, the simulation is Okay, from the exam perspective, easily 2 questions can be expected. Important part is bootstrapping and reducing Monte Carlo simulation error. The last 2 chapters which were explicitly added in 2023, which is related to machine learning, okay, because the industry is moving towards that. Over here in this entire chapter, okay, the focus of the institute, I feel, is being to give you perspective of different methodologies available which are being used in the industry with respect to machine learning, give you a gist of the methodology, okay, because they're not actually getting into deep dive, because see, all of these concepts are to be done using an algorithm and all, but if you read the book, it is more theoretical. Okay, so this chapter explicitly is theoretical. Okay, from the exam perspective, you can expect 1 question from this chapter. Okay, next is machine learning and prediction, easily 2 questions. Okay, this is theory plus some sort of calculation. Okay, so there is one predictive performance which is very important, which is related to your calculation piece. Okay, from the exam perspective, they have been testing machine learning concepts, but I'll be highlighting you when I do the lectures also, I'll be highlighting you important part. Even if you focus on that, very good chances that you'll be able to tackle this chapter. Okay, so with this, we have completed book 2. We're going to be moving towards book 3. Okay, so book 3 is financial markets and products, and over here you'll easily find connected chapters. Okay, but the first 3 chapters are individual chapters, which is banks. Okay, then what is bank? Basically, they have explained to you how does investment bank work, what are the challenges, what are the conflict of interest, how does in US market investment banking structure work. So very theoretical chapter, no calculation as such. You can expect 1 question, but in some exams they have not even tested from this chapter. Okay. Insurance and company pension plans. Again, the purpose of this addition of this chapter was to give you the basics of different products which are available in banking side. Theoretical chapter. Okay, one part is calculation, which is the premium, break-even premium, which is tested in the exam. Okay, but it is very lengthy question, so you have to be very cautious whether you are confident on that concept or not. Okay, so you can easily expect 1 to 2 question from this concept, from this chapter. Theoretical, easy, it's not very tough. Fund management, lengthy chapter, slightly lengthy chapter, but pure theory. Again, talking about what is hedge fund, what is mutual fund, what is open-ended, closed-ended fund, all of these things in detail they are talking about. Further, they are also giving you the perspective of different hedge fund strategies. Okay, so from the exam perspective, generally hedge funds and the structure of the hedge funds are generally tested. And when we talk about pension fund, they have also talked about defined benefit pension plan that can get tested. Okay, from the exam perspective, I expect 2 questions to the higher end. Generally, they will not go above 2. Introduction to derivatives. Okay, this is the building block chapter. Okay, where the focus is on making you understand of call and put. Very easy chapter. When you attend my lecture, I'll give you the steps to follow when you're looking at call and put, and this will make your life very easy. Okay, so from the exam perspective, it is pure theory. 1 or 2 calculation pieces are there, but they are very basic calculation. Okay, but I do not expect them to test you directly from this chapter, because they will test you higher concepts of call and put or forward contract. Okay, so that is what the overall perspective I have seen. 1 second. Let us move towards the next chapter, exchange and OTC market. They're giving you the perspective of what are different types of markets are available. Everybody is aware about the exchange, but we, as a normal candidate, we generally are not aware about OTC till the time we have not worked into the investment banking domain. So they're giving the perspective what are the challenges in OTC. Majority of the trades are happening in OTC. How does clearing house work in that? So we call it CCP. What are the different types of risks that they are facing? All of this has been explained. So this chapter and the next chapter are connected. Central clearing and this. So at a combined level, they can ask you 2 to 3 questions easily. Okay, and checking you on the central clearing concept in detail. Okay, OTC derivative market been discussed in detail. What are the different types of risks that they are facing? All of these are important concept. Let us move towards the next part, which is your futures market. Okay, from here there are certain chapters which are only talking on futures. Then there are certain chapters which are only talking about options. Okay, so first chapter, futures market, basic chapter. It's pure theory. Okay, you can easily expect one question from this chapter. Okay, it is not that important chapter, but it is again a building block. The next chapter is using futures for hedging. Very, very important. Very, very important. Okay, so you can expect around 2 to 3 questions depending upon how they want to test you. It has theory plus calculation part. Okay, but most of the important concepts are there. For example, what is hedge ratio? Then how do you look at basis risk? Very, very important. They test you on theory plus some amount of calculation also. Foreign exchange market. This is the only chapter focusing on FX on your FRM level 1 curriculum. Okay, for you can easily expect one question. It's more or less theory. It's slightly lengthy in terms of it is more understanding based chapter. Okay, how the actual market of FX is working. It's very interesting chapter. Pricing financial forwards and futures, very, very important chapter. Market as star, double star. This is where the calculation from your book 3 will come. Easily 2 to 3 question, very easily. Okay, this is where you'll be using a lot of calculator from this chapter, heavy calculation based part, but very important. Okay, everything from this chapter is important. Okay, next, commodity forwards and futures. So this chapter, the pricing financial forward, was related to investment asset. What is an investment asset? Stock, bond. Okay, so you're talking about futures and forwards on that. When we talk about commodity, the focus is more on oil, agri product. Okay, so underlying asset has changed. Okay, that is the overall perspective. Okay, and from this chapter is also important, not as important as the previous one, but this is important. You can expect 2 questions from this chapter, calculation plus theory in this chapter. Okay, so if when you look at this chapter, you will find convenience yield, which is very, very important. The calculation of lease rate, storage cost, these are important part. And lastly, you have backwardation and contango, important from the exam perspective. So this is where we completed the futures and forwards part. Over here, next we are going to be entering into options chapter. Okay, theory, this chapter, options market, not very important from the exam perspective. So I expect that when they're going to test you on options, basics of the option, they might ask you other 3 chapters which are there, and it will automatically get testing of the basics. So I expect only one question to be tested. In most cases, they have not asked much of the content from this chapter in the exam. Properties of option, again, very, very important chapter, double star. Okay, from the exam perspective, easily 2 to 3 question can be tested. It's again theoretical, but understanding with a lot of formulas. It's going to be very interesting chapter, more conceptual. If you understand the concepts, the chapter is very easy. Okay, marking this as double star from the exam perspective. Trading strategy, single star, which basically means important but not very, very important. You can easily expect 2 questions. Now, if generally they test you on strategy like butterfly strategy, then principal protected node, bull, bear, box spread. Okay, all of these strategies can be asked in your question. Straddle is also important. So 2 questions. It is more about theory because the calculation is not very tough. It's very basic calculation, but the understanding has to be very good. Okay, trading strategy important. Exotic, you can expect around 1 question easily from this chapter, but this chapter was historically very important. But in the last 3-4 exams, I have not heard they have been testing explicitly on the exotic option. From this chapter as such, you will find barrier, binary important, then compound option slightly important, Asian option slightly important. Let us move towards the next part. Now, the way the entire curriculum is structured, okay, the properties of interest rate. Now, when you look at this chapter, it is more bond valuation driven, which is going to come in your book 4. Okay, so when I'm going to teach you this chapter, I will not teach you with your futures and options. I will do it along with your bond valuation part itself. Okay, this chapter you can easily expect 2 questions. Okay, it's pure bond related chapter. They're talking about how interest rate is can calculated. What is the process of calculation of forward rate agreement is also there slightly. Then they're also talking about duration. This is very important. Modified duration, dollar duration from the exam perspective. Then what is convexity? How does it going to impact? That has also been explained in detail in this chapter. Okay, so it is slightly important. 2 questions from the exam perspective. Corporate bond, pure theory. Okay, it is actually the basics of what is bond, how does when does company raise money, what are the different types of bond available, slightly theoretical. Okay, one question is expected from this chapter, not very important chapter. Mortgage and mortgage backed security, I expect it is an important chapter, okay, because this is a building block of your other two chapters from your book 1. Okay, you can easily expect 2 to 3 questions. This is a structured product, and they're telling you how does the structured product actually works, what are the variations into it, how do the modeling of it. So all of this CPR, this is modeling related part, SMM CPR, very very important. Then you have dollar roll also being discussed, which is a dollar roll transaction, very very important from the exam perspective. Option adjusted spread is also important. So overall level, the chapter is very lengthy, but the concepts are important. Specific concepts are going to get repeated in your exam. Last chapter, interest rate futures, sorry, second last chapter. This chapter is a combination of both futures plus bond valuation. Futures plus bond valuation combination. Okay, so whenever I'm going to pick up this chapter, I'll first, obviously my futures part would have been already completed, then I'll go towards the bond valuation, and then I'll move towards this chapter. Okay, important from the exam perspective, 2 to 3 question easily. Okay, over here the day count convention, which is the accrued interest, very very important, highly testable in the exam. Okay, then cheapest to deliver bond, in every exam you would find this kind of question, cheapest to deliver bond, very straightforward. Duration based hedging, euro dollar futures, important. Okay, swaps, from this chapter, explicitly what they do is they will test you only on one question, and that question is going to be calculation. This is where you'll have to do pure calculation. You have to do the present value, find the value of the swap. So generally they test you on valuation of swaps. How do they value? Okay, it can be a cross currency swap, or it can be a plain vanilla interest rate swap. So calculation based questions can come. One question generally they test you. Okay, depending upon what is the stock, what kind of what is your luck also in the actual exam, because if they might give you a slightly difficult question also. Okay, if they're not testing you heavily on the other topics, they will test you over here. So with this we have completed book 3. I hope everybody is with me. सब लोग हैं मेरे साथ में? Okay, let us move towards the book 4, which is valuation and risk model. Okay, the first 3 chapters of this book is VAR related chapter. Okay, VAR is nothing but risk methodology of looking at the overall risk of the company. Now if you want to do this chapter, ideally your entire book 2 should be completed, then only you can come and touch this chapter. Okay, plus from book 1, modern portfolio theory has to be completed, then only you can pick up the chapter. And when we do this, okay, you will understand why I'm explicitly saying this. Okay, I generally do it at the end of the curriculum, because you have got the overall perspective, and then I touch this chapter. From the exam perspective, easily 2 questions are testable. Important concept are there in this chapter. What exactly is mean variance framework, what is expected shortfall, what is VAR in detail can get tested. And then there is coherent risk measure. There are certain properties of coherent risk measure which are also testable in the exam. So important. Okay, calculation and applying VAR. Okay, it's the sum part of the chapter is important. So I expect around 1 question easily to be tested in from this exam part. Okay, it can be worst case scenario, it can be delta normal approach, what are the problems with delta normal, but very specific part. Again, this chapter is more theory. Okay, this chapter is theory plus calculation. Let us move forward. The third chapter, very important, easily 2 to 3 questions. Okay, in the past exams, what I've heard is that EWMA or GARCH has been heavily tested. These are calculation based questions. Okay, 2 to 3 questions very easily they can test you. Again, to understand this chapter, your first 2 chapters to be very clear, then only you can pick up this chapter. Okay, so the first 3 chapters focused on VAR. Okay, and after this, VAR is not explicitly talked about. Let us move to next chapter, external internal rating. They're talking about how does credit grading works, what are their thought process, Moody's, S&P, all of that. Okay, so 1 question Okay, and generally this one question, if they test you, there is one specific rating transition matrix which is there. Okay, from the exam perspective, one, if you're lucky, they will also give you two questions. Standalone chapter, you'll not find credit rating being discussed anywhere else in detail. Country risk, again a standalone chapter. Okay, so I don't expect much question to be tested from this chapter, maximum one question. Okay, pure theory. Again, sorry, the previous chapter, external internal rating, it is theory plus some calculation. The calculation part is your rating transition matrix, and also there is hazard rate, which is calculation based. Country risk I already talked about. Let me take you towards measuring credit risk. Okay, important from the exam perspective, two questions, mostly focusing on expected and unexpected loss, that has been tested, and Weizak model, they are tested in the exam. So two question. Okay, it is calculation intensive chapter. Operational risk, now this chapter, okay, it's pure theory, only one chapter focusing on operational risk in the entire curriculum. But now what is happening over here is, in the last exam, the May, and it's heard a lot of students saying that they got around 2 to 3 4 questions coming from this chapter. So hence I'm marking this as star. Okay, the understanding has to be clear from the exam perspective. Okay, it's pure theory chapter. Let us move to stress testing. Again, theoretical chapter, not so important. So I'm just saying one question over here. Not, it's very, very basic theory chapter. Talking about, there are different methodologies like scenario analysis, stress testing that companies use to manage their overall risk. So that has been explained over here in detail. From this chapter, the bond valuation is starting. Okay, so there are 3 chapters over here which are going to give you the basics of the valuation, where you have to use heavy calculator. Okay, so pricing convention and discount part, maximum 1 or 2 question, but not very important chapter. Okay, calculation heavy. The entire bond valuation has to be done. The time value concept has to be very clear. The grip on the calculator has to be good. Okay, the next chapter is interest rate. Again, continuation of bond valuation, but important from the exam perspective. You can easily expect 2 questions from this chapter. They can test you on flattening and steepening, bull flattening, bear flattening, that part, par rate. Then there are forward rates which are easily testable in the exam. Okay, 2 questions. Okay, purely calculation based chapter. Bond yield and return, I also mark this as single star. Over here they might test you on what is YTM of the bond, very, very important. Then there is return decomposition section. That return decomposition is also important from the exam perspective. So I expect around 2 questions from this chapter. Applying duration and convexity, very, very important chapter. Now from here we are actually entering into bond hedging. So you already have a portfolio, and now you want to protect that portfolio when the interest rate is going to change. So the overall concept of DV01 is heavily used in the industry. So that is why DV01, duration, how do you hedge using DV01? Then there is a concept of barbell versus bullet portfolio. All of this is important. So 2 to 3 questions easily from this chapter. Okay. Modeling non-parallel shift, a slightly tricky chapter. This is also again into bond hedging. Okay, I expect around 1 question to be tested. Okay, mostly it's going to be theoretical. Okay, and they generally test you on key rate concept. Okay, so slightly tough chapter. So you can generally, students face challenge in this chapter. The last 3 chapters of your book 4 is connected to your option valuation. So whatever options call put that we read in book 3, the connecting part over here is in the last 3 chapters, binomial, Black-Scholes and option Greeks. So when I'm also going to train you, okay, I'm going to cover the futures, then the option, and I'll directly come to this chapter, because your concepts about call put is very clear and you can easily go and do this chapter. If you take a gap, you'll tend to forget the basics of the call and put option. Okay, binomial tree, important from the exam perspective. 1 to 2 question easily testable. It's calculation based question part, but again you have to understand the concept, and once you're clear on what is happening, the calculation will not be a problem. Okay, Black-Scholes model, very important chapter from the exam perspective. That is a BSM model, which is very famous, widely used in the industry to do the valuation of call option and put option. So that is being tested. Okay, for example, what are the assumptions of the model? Okay, how do you calculate or value the option price? That is also being tested. So easily you can expect 2 to 3 questions from this chapter. Okay, again, slightly calculation intensive, important from the exam perspective. Option Greek, I'm putting a single star in this chapter. Again, it is calculation, but theory is also there. That means understanding has to be also clear. Over here, the delta hedging is very important. And how do you manage the dynamic aspect of delta hedging? These things are tested in the exam, plus concept of gamma is also tested. So you can expect easily 2 questions from the exam perspective. Okay, so this was the last chapter of your book 4. So we have completed all the 4 books. I've tried to give you the overview of all the 4 books. Any queries student might have? If you also have a query, you can put it on the chat section. I'll address it. Not worry. So in my agenda, I have covered the brief about FRM exam, overview of all the book. Okay, and I'll directly first go towards the 4th part, which is how to solve the question bank. Okay, what should be your ideal strategy? Okay, because this is what I generally provide. So you should have chapter wise question bank. Okay, then you should have book wise, also called as sectional test. So when you join us, you'll get sectional test also. Okay, and book wise test also, plus there's going to be important concept quiz. So what is going to happen? The 3 or 4 chapters, okay, will be combined and 1 quiz will be created. Okay, then you have mock papers. Now whatever I'm talking about is basically the ideal situation. So whenever you start your preparation, okay, suppose you're starting on 1st of November or 1st of December, there's no problem with that. A lot of students who start their preparation in January also, so there is no issue. Whenever you start, you should try to complete, okay, by 31st of March, all the chapter wise questions. All the chapter wise questions. Okay, that should be the ideal situation. See, a lot of students will not be in that situation. Okay, they might, because of office commitment, personal commitment, so they will slightly get delayed. Okay, so that is a case by case situation, but ideally end of March you should be able to complete your chapter wise question. Okay, and in the month of April, okay, you should first do your revision, first full-fledged revision of all the book, individual book 1, book 2, book 3, book 4, and you should give your book wise test. You should give your book wise test. Okay, once you're done with this, take up the important concept quiz, which has 3-4 chapters connected and given in 1 quiz. For example, you have around 4 chapters on basics of option, covered everything into 1 quiz. So you'll have to read those 3-4 chapters to solve this. Okay, you can give this in the second reading of these chapters, and then you can go for mock papers, solve at least 3 to 4 mocks, and out of that the GARP sample paper is very important. Okay, that ideally should be completed in the month of April, or suppose in the first week of May is also okay. Mock, suppose your exam is on 12th of May, then from 1st May you can do mock papers. That is okay. So that should be your broader approach towards the actual exam. Okay, now when we look at how we can help you, how my sessions are going to be conducted. Okay, so there's going to be physical lecture in Mumbai, okay, in Andheri, and there's going to be a live online batch also. People can join from their home also. Now my lectures are explicitly going to be on Saturdays and Sunday. The timing is 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. with break. I'll just rewrite. There are going to be breaks in between. Okay, for this 5 hour slot, but breaks in between. And what I generally do is first and third Saturday, there's no lecture. Okay, why? The reason being, it's because banks are operating. So there are a lot of banking students. So hence we do it that way. When the banks will announce a 5-day week, a working week, then we can take a decision what should be done in the first and the third Saturday. Okay. Next is that the lectures. Okay, every week you will be updated what lecture are we going to do. Okay, that is just for your information perspective. Okay, so weekly we will be informing you which chapter are we going to do on the upcoming Saturdays and Sundays on the Telegram channel. Okay, now what is important if you want to attend the lecture, and I want everybody to listen to this very, very clearly. Okay, if you're going to attend, being a part of the live batch, it can be physical, it can be online. The first and the foremost requirement is this: you have to watch the video of the chapter or the lecture before coming to the lecture. So we will be providing you with one set of videos. Okay, you have to make sure that you have seen the videos before coming to the lecture. Okay, when you're watching the video, okay, when you're watching the video, write down your doubts in pencil, okay, in the book. Okay, these two things are very, very important. So if you have already started with me and started watching the video, please make sure that you write down your doubts. Okay, now how this is going to be very helpful for you. Okay, this is important. Why? Because we are tackling a competitive exam. Okay, so please do not compare this exam with your college exam. Okay, please do not compare your FRM exam with any other banking exam like JIB, CIB. Please do not do that. You'll end up failing in the exam. Okay, so you cannot have the same thought process being applied over here. Okay, so this is what I wanted to make it very, very clear. Okay, before you start the process of your preparation, because if you're a college student, you feel that I'll prepare in 1 or 2 months. I've seen students crying. They have full 1 month, 2 months, but they are not in a position to prepare. So do not do that. Okay, why I explicitly mentioned banking exam, because a lot of banking students, they come with the perspective that I will prepare everything first and then I will register for the exam. That will not happen. Okay, because in this exam, whatever you're going to read, the same thing is not going to get tested. It is more understanding based. Okay, so even if you have read something 4 months, 5 months before everything is done, it does not give you any guarantee that you're going to clear the exam. Okay, so that is the idea that you should keep in mind. Your main thing that I expect all the students to do whenever you start, 1st November, 1st December, 1st January, whenever you start, from that starting date, okay, till end of April, there has to be consistency in your preparation. Okay, that means you should first focusing on 1 hour every single day, 1 hour every single day, and then gradually increase it to 1.5 hour to 2 hour. Okay, and then very close to the exam, you should try to focus on getting 3 hours to 4 hours, depending upon how much time you have. But this exam is not a weekend preparation exam. So keep that thought also out of mind that, okay, I'll only prepare on weekend because I'm very busy on weekdays. Then this exam is not for you. Very clear. Okay. One more important point which I want to highlight, again, important for all the students who are planning to join me. Okay, the first requirement, and I might have told this to a lot of students with whom I've got an opportunity to speak, but I'm making this on a public forum. The first thing, if you want to join my batch, you have to be mentally clear, okay, that you're going to passing the exam in May 2024. If you're not able to see this, okay, do not join the batch very clearly. Okay. Second, if you're thinking that I will prepare first and I'll go for the August, don't join, because I only want to work with winners who are mentally clear about their goal. Because if you're doing this, if you're not sure about passing, you're confused, then you're wasting your time and my time also. So please don't do that. Okay. Second, you'll only follow the order of preparation given by me. Do not deviate. I've seen people failing miserably because of that. Okay. So please do not do that. Follow the order, maintain consistency. Okay. Because if you break the order, it becomes very difficult for me to guide you. I have no clarity where you're standing, how much preparation you have done. It takes a lot of time for me to understand your current situation and guide you. So I do not expect that to happen. Okay. So these two things are very, very clear. Okay. You have to follow the entire preparation. Be very consistent before coming to the lecture. You have to watch the video. If I realize that people are not watching the video, I'll start putting restriction on their access to the content. Very simple. Okay. Start putting restriction, because you have to be very clear. This exam is not easy. You have to give your heart, mind, soul, everything for this exam. Next 6 months, leave your other commitments, personal life. I know work is there, work is difficult, you have to manage. Okay. So critical points to highlights: do's and don'ts if you want to prepare properly for the FRM exam. Certain things are very generic, which obviously you might be aware about. For example, when you are preparing, come with the mindset that you have to consistently prepare. Consistency with respect to daily preparation. Like I said, weekend preparation is not enough. Prepare daily. Okay. If you're working, 1-2 hour is going to be daily prepared. I'll be addressing the queries also. Just wait for a few more minutes. Okay. So that is very, very important. Whenever you are looking at the content, okay, focus when you're reading, for the first time. I'll put it this way. When you're reading for the first time, okay, 100% you'll not be able to understand. Okay. Because when you read for the second time, third time, you'll get more better clarity. Because the way the curriculum is structured, okay, there are certain parts which you might find in the first chapter, but it has connecting part coming it in 10th chapter. Okay, because if you read the first chapter, it talks about VAR, it talks about stress testing. You have not even heard about that, because that is going to come in your book 4. So first reading, okay, do not expect 100% you will understand everything. That is not going to happen. Okay. Third, you will during the entire preparation period, okay, prep period, you will forget the concept, which is very, very normal. Okay. So for example, if I'm starting with first chapter right now, okay, after 3 weeks, 4 weeks, obviously you will not remember the concept. So do not panic. It is not, you don't have to rectify, you don't have to mug. Okay. So do not panic. You will be revising that chapter again in the future. So you will be able to connect back. Okay. So that during the entire preparation period, there are definitely going to be periods, time frame where you will find that, okay, I don't remember anything which I have already studied. It is very, very, very normal. Okay. When you're going to solve the question bank, okay, you have to focus on time management. You have to focus on time management. You have to focus on option elimination. Any question that you're doing, okay, and the average accuracy is around 50 to 60% only. I'm repeating, average accuracy is around 50 to 60% only. The way the question banks are designed, in my question bank access or the institute level, anywhere, it has been designed in such a way that you will not be able to score out of 10, you will not be able to score 7, 9, 10. It will not generally not happen. So average accuracy is 50-60%. So do not doubt your ability because you're getting 50-60 correct. It is very normal. Okay. So if you're able to manage all of these things, most important, consistency in your preparation. Okay. Your question bank solving, going it with the right thought process, the chances of you clearing the exam is going to be very high. I'll address the query now. Okay. Uh, yes, Shraddha, answering to your query. So the videos course that I've given you, in that there is an order of preparation. I'll show that access now. That order I'm almost going to follow. More or less, I'm going to follow that order. Okay, Shraddha, I've answered your query. Do you need hard copy of the book? Not necessary. Okay, soft copy is also good. Is there any edition for FRTB? No. FRTB is in the level 2. Darshan, I've answered your query. It is covered in level 2. Okay. Apurva, yes, if you have already started watching the video, you're ahead of me. That is better. Before coming to the lecture, just read the textbook once and then come to the lecture. Okay. So when you join the batch, you will ideally be getting, 1 second. I hope everybody is able to see this. So this is the video. You'll be getting a video lecture package. Okay. In which you will find I've bifurcated it as week 1, week 2, week 3. So I've put connected topics, okay, in a particular order. You have to go in that particular order. So you don't have to worry about what is the order. The order is already given over here, okay. Plus, what I've done is I've given you questions also, okay. The questions also are highlighted over here. So in every week, whatever chapter you're covering, some basic easy questions are there to test you. The main question bank will be added post December mid, once we understand what is the overall change in the curriculum. Okay. Then this is the video section. Next, the people who are going to be joining online, okay, they will be getting this live online course also. In this, whatever is this current live session, I'm repeating, whatever is the current live session, there you have to join the lecture in the current live session. Okay. So this is where we have I have almost talked about the overall overview, do's and don't. I'll go to the agenda 1 second. What should be your approach? I've already talked about how to solve question bank, how I'm going to train, what is my requirement, and some basic do's and don'ts for your FRM preparation. Okay, so this is where I come to the end of the broader content that I wanted to talk about. Any specific query? किसी के मन में कोई शंका, दुविधा? You can put it on chat, I'll address. Recorded lecture are from 2023 book, but should we refer to the recent GARB book? You are not supposed to touch the GARB book. Swedger book is good enough. Don't touch the GARB book, okay? 2024 curriculum change will be available in December. The actual book of Swedger will be available by January first week. January end. So till that time, any which ways we cannot do anything with respect to 2024. So I'll be going through the 2023 content, and then whatever is a change, I'll cover it in the 2020. Whatever the change is there, I'll cover it later on. The lectures are going to be starting from next week, Sunday, 5th. If someone is not from this background, there's no need for any background. Okay, just follow the process. You'll be able to, because in the May exam, there were like 4 to 5 students who have completed 12th standard exam. In the first year of college, they've cleared FRM. Yes. So there's no need for anything to worry about. What about Diwali weekend? Classes will be there. Shraddha, ये सब भूल जाओ अभी. Okay? अभी जो आपने whatever decision you have taken, okay, har din you have to prepare, every day you have to prepare. So lectures will be there. Yes, more or less will be there. If there is any change, I'll inform you. Right, Shraddha? What about others? Any query? Prachi, Rahul, Gaurav, Apurv, Manav, Kalpesh. After watching the video lectures of chapter, I'm reading the book and also giving chapter wise quiz. Yeah, that is a process. Watch the video, read the textbook, go and solve the question. That's proper. Yes, Umesh, lectures are only on Saturday and Sunday. Weekday पे मैं दूसरे कामों में busy रहता हूँ, मैं नहीं आ पाऊंगा. Okay. Right now, my suggestion would be that you pick up the 2023 book, whatever is a change. Okay, you basically do it to look at the change later. So don't wait for 2024 book. Sudeep, it's the same book that we have. I'm going to use in the session. Piyush, answering to your query, if you have done CFA level 1, you have some background of the contents like portfolio management, derivatives. Okay, but FRM is going to be slightly in detail, because ideally FRM level 1 when you complete, okay, you're done with 40% of CFA level 1 and 40% of CFA level 2 also. So from that perspective, FRM level 1 में थोड़ा मेहनत है. You'll have to put your effort, but it will help you. Your CFA background will help you. The first session is going to be on 5th of November. All the lectures which we are going to be taking, okay, which will be on our own platform, the platform which I showed, all the live sessions will be recorded and it will be made available to professional and all-in-one batch student. I hope Tejas, I have answered the query. Yogesh, मैंने 3rd नहीं बोला योगेश, 5th of November, Sunday है. Ankur, at least first week to video complete. The chapter which I'm going to touch, that chapter has to be completed. Apurva, there is no need for you to read the GARB book. See, if you have time, then only do it. But my suggestion, there is no need actually. I'm answering to the queries, huh? Ayush, I've answered the query, no? Abhi start ho raha hai. This batch which is going to start is going to be for May 2024 batch attempt. Any queries, guys? सब लोग हैं साथ में? And there is a calculator which is required. I hope everybody has purchased the calculator. If not, I'll put the link of the calculator on the Telegram group also. Yogesh, answering to your query, the first live batch on our platform is going to be on 5th of November, Sunday. 5th Sunday, na? I've answered the query. Anybody else online? Koi query? We'll be dropping a message on the Telegram group. Telegram channel bhi hai, us pe dalunga main. What is going to be the chapter that we are going to be covering? Rahul, order same nahi hoga, thoda bahut change hoga. That's the reason I'm every week going to post now what chapters we're going to be covering. Okay. Yogesh, I've answered your query. Rahul, I've answered your query. All good. So if everybody is okay, we're going to be closing the session. So let us start with the journey for FRM level 1. Okay. Clear mindset. You're going to pass the exam in May 2024. There is no option for you. You have to manage your job, personal life, everything, and clear the exam, because in your life there is going to be no opportunity where nobody will come and say that okay, prepare for the exam, we'll give you time. It will not happen. Okay, be very practical. If you're not serious about your career, nobody else is going to be. So make sure that you give your best 110%. You should not regret later. Okay, and if you're coming to me, follow my process. That is a prime most requirement. Okay, you'll see the result. Okay, but follow the process diligently. Okay, and you'll be able to clear the exam. Okay, so thank you very much, guys, for joining in. There are a few queries on the YouTube channel also. I'll address it. Calculator, what amount of calculator usage is required? Like I said, 30 question maximum out of 100. That is calculation based. There'll be no lecture on 1st and 3rd Saturday. Yes, I've mentioned that. Omkar, answering to your query, there is no need for the exam to be expert in financial modeling. There is no need. If you want to do it separately, that's a different thing, but nothing to worry about. Okay. Answering to your query, Aspire, yes, the video lectures are from basics. The similar kind of video lecture content people have seen, people from college. We have no background of statistics, no back. They've also been able to understand and clear the exam. So don't worry. Okay. I hope everybody is clear on the YouTube channel also. So I'm going to close the session for today. So thank you very much, guys, for joining in, and let us prepare properly for the FRM Level 1 exam and clear the exam in May 2024 attempt. Okay.